Good morning and welcome to Legally Speaking with attorney Antoinette Osbourne. This program is for information purposes only. If you need legal advice, you can contact me, Antoinette Osbourne, at 718-502-9137. That's 718-502-9137. The office focuses on divorce, bankruptcy, real estate, and estate matters. We also do eviction proceedings. There is a second office in Jamaica, West Indies, that focuses on legal representation if you are seeking to buy or sell property, or if you are looking to wrap up an estate. Now, this morning, I wanted to focus on stipulations and the issue of people who would attend after signing their stipulations to say that they never validly entered into this agreement. Now, it is extremely important that if you are in a divorce proceedings, that you should immediately, once you are represented, review your stipulation with your attorney. All right, so bear with me 1 second as I forgot to post the live on Facebook. Let's see here. Now, this is an issue that arises a lot. People are not reviewing their divorce settlement agreements. And the problem with this is having not reviewed it, people will come and say, oh, their attorney just told them to sign. They didn't get a chance to review it. The danger with this is, and I can't believe any attorney is not going to go over that divorce agreement with someone. I find it highly improbable that this actually happens. Now, one of the problems where you wish to come back after you have entered in your divorce stipulation is that it is highly unlikely that you are in fact going to have the ability to come back. And the reason for this is, unfortunately, you are questioned extensively prior to entering into your stipulation with your attorney. And in fact, you have to respond to the judge's question with regards to this. Bear with me because I need to get this link to post. Let's see here. All right. So one of the dangers is people will come back after, let's see, 1 second. All right, so people will come back after they have entered into their stipulation, come back crying to say that the agreement is not what they had thought it would be and that they never agreed to certain terms. Well, I'll tell you this, that is not going to fly in the court of law just because the judge specifically would question whether or not, one, you were under the influence of any drugs or alcohol. Two, whether or not you are satisfied with the representation of your attorney. And three, they also ask whether you had sufficient time to review the agreement with their attorney. And the purpose for this is to solidify that agreement, which prevents you from coming back. So the fact that you have what I will refer to as buyer's remorse, in that you are now in an agreement and you regret the terms, that's not the basis to in fact set aside an agreement. And what you're going to find is people are stuck with these terms and they become dissatisfied. I know for me personally, I like to give the agreement to my clients so that they can review it separately from me. It gives them the time to review each term, and in order to take their time, read it, try and get some semblance of understanding, and then thereafter we go over it another day. Because I find when people review documents in the office, I don't know what it is, like certain things they miss, right? And this does not help them later on if they see something that they're not in agreement with. So I like my clients to review it by themselves in the comfort of their own home. Then we go over it and we solidify the term. So if you're just joining us, you are listening to Legally Speaking with attorney Antoinette Osbourne. This morning, I wanted to focus on what I believe is a very important topic for our community. And I'm going to go into the consequence of not having a valid marriage, so that you can see the devastation and the legal ramifications that some people face as a result of that marriage not being a valid marriage. So, initially, I wanted to focus on your agreements in your divorce proceedings, because I don't think people are taking the time to read their agreement. And these are terms that you are stuck with. You must go over that agreement. And if you don't have an attorney, then retain an attorney just to advise you on the agreement. It's so important, because where your stipulation or your agreement in your divorce, it governs you for the rest of your life with your spouse. So you having buyer's remorse to say, oh, you don't like these terms, that's not going to fly with the judge when you come back and you're seeking to set aside the agreement. It's really not going to work out for you. All right, so let's look at the devastating consequences where you do not name a beneficiary. And I think if people have the ability where you take out an insurance policy, I am going to encourage you to name someone to benefit from your policy. Because when you don't have a named beneficiary, they are going to go, and this is statutory governed. So, what is going to in fact happen is the statute governs, and and what we have to understand is insurance and banking is governed by federal law, it's not governed by state law. So, what you find will happen is, if it is that you have failed to name a beneficiary, the sad thing is you're now going to revert to what the statute provides, right? And under the federal law, which governs insurance, it's not governed by state law. If you fail to list a beneficiary, what happens is your wife gets that policy. And only if you don't have a wife, then your children come into play. And if you have no kids, then they move next to your parent or the survivor of that parent. And it may be a sibling that you don't speak to, yet still they will benefit just because the statute now governs and you failed to name a beneficiary, right? And if there are no parents or no survivor of the parents, then you are looking at the executor or the administrator of the will, right? The proceeds are payable to them. So I'm just going to encourage everyone, if you are in fact making a insurance policy, name your beneficiaries. And I would not name in terms of that specific role that they play, because here's an issue. If you just say you're leaving it to your wife, and you may have intended to leave it to your first wife, but then you get remarried and now you have a second wife. Just because you stated wife, the second wife benefits, right? No. People, in terms of getting married, I'm going to encourage anyone, if you are getting married to someone and they have been married before, and this is an issue I am going to keep raising in our community because I don't think we are vigilant in terms of our documentation. If it is that your spouse has been married before, I am going to encourage you, please ensure that you see that divorce paperwork, right? People will start divorces and they don't complete it. And I'm going to tell you what happened to this lady. And it's sad. If you are with someone and you're getting married and you know that person has been married before, you should, in applying for that marriage license, you should become very suspicious if in filling out that marriage license, that person checks off single. And the reason you should become very suspicious is if they have been married before, they should have checked that their status, they are divorced. And the reason some people will check single and not divorced on that marriage license is that the clerk, if you check divorced, they are going to ask to see the divorce judgment. So some people will be very slick and check single, despite the fact that they know that they were married before. And I'm going to just show you the devastating consequences that occurred in this lady's life, right? So her husband died. He did not name a beneficiary. And in failing to name a beneficiary, you're going to revert to the federal statute that governs the insurance policy as to who the insurance company should get paid. And in conflicting interests, the insurance company has to protect itself. And they're going to come into that action, right? The reason being is they don't want to pay out to the wrong person. So they want a determination by the court to determine who is spouse. And it's so sad because oftentimes it is the wife that's in the home. So where you've married someone and they failed to obtain a divorce in accordance with the rules of law for whatever state you live, they lived in at the time they filed their divorce, and they failed to do this, what you will see happening is the insurance company is not just going to pay out to the second spouse like that when the first spouse comes and says, we were never divorced. So now the first spouse, the burden lies on them to prove they were never divorced, right? And there was 240, I think $243,000 up for grabs in this policy. And everybody knows when it comes to money, the other side of people come out. So here it is, and this is why you have to be vigilant. Here it is, you as the second wife, you are in that home, and if your spouse is ill, you are the one taking care of that person, right? And as time progresses and the person becomes ill, you're the one running up and down to the doctors. You're the one filling prescription. You are the caregiver nursing your spouse in that house or attending that nursing home facility to ensure that your spouse is taken care of. And this woman was the second wife in the home. The first wife and her daughter now comes to say, he never divorced. And the first wife says, I am the spouse, so I am entitled to that monies. And the federal law will now move to New York state law, right? As to how it is that you define spouse, because that's not something that the federal government determines. They leave that to the state. And these are the separation of powers. They leave that to the state to determine who is the spouse. And in New York, the first wife is required to check the county that the deceased lived in. Yeah. And they are also required to check the county that they live in if it's separate county. Now, the second wife life would have been easier if when she got married, she had made sure that those divorce documents are kept in a safe place, or she at least knew of the county where the divorce was entered in, right? But people are so trusting. And this is a thing that gets our community. We are a very trusting community. And you will say, if your spouse says, I'm divorced, oftentimes people do not ask for documents. And it's a big mistake. So here it is. The second wife, all she could tell the court was that he told me he was divorced. But the first wife was able to do her searches in those counties. And this is dangerous. And I'll tell you why it is in fact dangerous. Because as attorneys, some counties that your client lives in, it takes a really long time for a divorce judgment to be issued. And as such, New York state law allows us to file in different counties under what that statute is, the CPLR, right? It's our civil procedure rules. So we can file in a different county. Now, the first wife is put to proof and she checks the county the husband resides in, the county that she resides in, and there's no divorce judgment. And this is why you cannot be, as if you are the current wife and your spouse has been divorced before, you cannot be so complacent that you are in that house and your spouse has stated he has divorced, yet you have no proof. And this is what happened to this woman. Second wife, her spouse died. She had no proof of that divorce judgment. Yet she was the person toiling and taking care. This man has separated from his first wife years ago. But in the face of 243,000, she was not going to sit down where there was a possibility that she could get this money. And that second wife who is in that house taking care of him could not prove that her husband was divorced. And what they did, they pulled the marriage license application and they saw that he checked single. Now, the judge determined if he was really divorced, he would have checked divorced. So that clearly goes to show that he knew he was lying because the clerk would have asked him for a divorce judgment. A divorce judgment he did not have. And as such, it was determined that he was not divorced. So that first wife was able to collect that 243,000. So the second wife, because this is where you go ahead, you take out these policies and you fail to name beneficiaries. So guess what happens? The second wife comes, right? And she makes an application, but she gets nothing because she's not able to show that her husband, at the time he married her, was divorced. You don't have a divorce judgment. Your say so is not good enough. You didn't even take details of the divorce judgment so you could even verify because the court is not going to give you an actual copy of the divorce judgment, but they will issue a document that the marriage is in fact terminated. And the reason for this is people's social security numbers are on this divorce judgment. And for privacy reason, family court cases for custody and neglect and child support, anything with family, and Supreme Court cases. Supreme Court is the only court that can in fact give you a divorce judgment. So, as a result of which, she could not prove that she was in fact divorced. And unfortunately, the first wife was able to collect all that money and she got nothing. And this is where I am going to encourage you. Please ensure that you, in fact, if you are getting married to someone, do not go. And I find oftentimes people who have immigration cases, they would check that their spouse is in fact divorced. The regular, because you have to go before the government. So you have to produce that document. The regular person on the street is just going with the say so. So if it is that you are in fact getting married, I am going to encourage you. If your spouse has been married before, you have to ensure that that marriage is terminated. Do not just go off a say so. Do not be complacent. You're looking for, and it depends on the jurisdiction that they got their divorce in. You're looking for the divorce judgment, or you could be looking for a decree absolute if they claimed that they got divorced in a certain country. Google and find out what document solidifies that termination of marriage. Do not just go off a person's say so. Our trusting in this community is what oftentimes defeat us because we are very trusting, we're very gullible, because oftentimes we're coming from a community where a person's word is their bond and you rely on the integrity of the person. No, this is America. You, in fact, need to see the black and white. So I'm not saying you're going to become very aggressive in questioning, can I see your divorce judgment? No, but you have to protect yourself. When you're getting married to someone, there are certain economic rights that emanate as a result of marriage. You lose out on those rights when you fail to engage in a valid marriage. Yeah. So I am going to encourage you, ensure that your marriage is valid. All right. Now, for those of you who you are in fact getting married, and I'm going to show you how a marriage license is very important, right? Because some people will believe that because they are in fact, they have not gotten a marriage license, that they are not married. And this is not the case. Yeah. Some people will believe that because they failed to register their marriage, they are in fact not married. And the reason why marriage is so important, and you have to ensure that your marriage is in fact legal, is the economic rights that come from this marriage are so important. From this marriage, you are able to claim equitable distribution, which is the division of the assets. You are also able to claim maintenance. Extremely important. Now, imagine investing in someone, building a life together, acquiring assets, being there for someone through the vicissitudes of life, only to encounter that your marriage is not legitimate. Yeah? And this happens to people. And I'll tell you, oftentimes the men are the breadwinner. And the cases are such that when procedurally something is not done correctly, they are the ones who are the first to look to have their marriage declared that it's not valid because of some procedural error. And for New York, all you need is you're married before a lawful officiant for your wedding, and you have one witness, right? So you did a ceremony which was conducted by someone who is in fact authorized to marry you. If you marry outside the state, once you're married, your marriage is in accordance with the law of the state or the country where you are married. That's good enough. If that country recognizes that you are in fact married, then you are married. New York will give full faith and credit to that marriage. And I'm going to show you the devastating effects of failing to ensure that you follow the proper procedure. So, New York is such that it requires a marriage license, right? But, and the reason they require a marriage license, they want to give you 24 hours. There's a 24-hour wait period because they want to ensure that you know what you're doing, giving you time to think about it. You can't just go for that license and right away you get married. No, you have to wait 24 hours before they will allow you to marry. And there's a purpose for it. Because oftentimes people realize that this may not be the person for me. I don't want to spend the rest of my life with this person, right? And I can tell you one thing our court is filled with. It is divorces. I don't know if we can beat out Nevada, but especially during the COVID era, I have never filed such divorces in the heights of COVID. Never. And I think it's because people were home and you really got to see your spouse, right? You saw them in a light where you have to question, is this the person I married? Yeah. All right. So Nicola says that Angela has posted a question. Do you think they'll take away someone's visiting visa if it's only used 2 times before expiration? No, obviously that person is not a risk of running off to the United States. So I don't think so. All right. Your marriage license application is important because it gives 24 hours for you to determine whether or not you want to marry this person. And I would encourage everyone, use those 24 hours wisely. Do not take light of that 24 hours. Yeah? Because I'll tell you this, that angel you are walking down the aisle with is a different devil you meet in divorce court. And sometimes you will get signs of who that person is. And because we like to be in la la land, we ignore these signs. I'm going to encourage anyone, don't ignore these signs. Very important, because you have to see, if you're not able to prove that marriage, you have no economic rights. So there are no claims for maintenance and there are no claims for division of property. So all this time you're investing in someone and you think, okay, you have rights in their pension. You have nothing. Absolutely nothing. And this is where I'm going to encourage you, don't just take people's word in certain situations. So for those of you who you have to apply for the marriage license, but let's say you did not, go ahead and get the marriage license. This does not mean that your marriage is not valid because you went straight and you went before the officiant and you got married and you didn't do the license. The fact that you did not get a marriage license does not mean that your marriage is void. Yeah. Once it is conducted with the proper officiant, that marriage is a legitimate marriage, right? So, for those of you who people think they're smart and they think they're slick, and I'll tell you, it's often the women getting conned. Yeah. Sometimes the man you marry will just, and the reason I know this is because I have been told this. Yeah. Then pay the pastor and tell the pastor, because sometimes the man them can taking all of that in their head. So you know what them do? All right, them gonna shut you up now, because you annoy me. Every day you come, you want to marry, you want to marry, you want to marry, can't take it. So I'm gonna show you a real setup and a real con artist. Him gonna arrange with a pastor. Yeah? Or you get the pastor, and after the ceremony, him pay the pastor not to register the marriage. And he thinks that is not a valid marriage. And I'm warning you, be careful who you pick up in life. Because someone are going to meet some devil. Yeah? And you think it's not a valid marriage, but it is. You went through the ceremony. Yeah? And it's so sad. I'm going to tell you the story of this couple. Yeah? And the reason I'm telling you this story is because I want you to be very cautious in how you proceed in your life and how you take people in your life. And you had this woman, she had 3 kids, and she was in her divorce proceeding. And she met this man in one of their religious chat rooms, right? And having met the man, they eventually ended up in a relationship. And because of her allegations of abuse, she wanted to run from her marital home. And he's seeing her, so he says, come by me. She has 3 kids, it's her, they have a 1-bedroom apartment, right? So now the husband who she's divorcing, I know I'm gonna make her life a living hell now. Yeah? So I'm calling social services. Oh, if you move in with man, with my 3 kids, yeah? And we are in a divorce proceedings. No, you're not a fit parent. So, yes, come in now. So them run to the rabbi, right? Because if you're in a certain religion, one of your first sources of help is you go to the head. So them run to the rabbi now because them need help. So the rabbi decide, oh my God, because they're in a predicament. And you being a holy person, you're just helpful by nature and want to help them, right? So he arranges it that they can move elsewhere. And he finds an apartment with another member of the synagogue. So that member now, I mean, I say, boy, them really work together enough with them religion. So that member now moves into her boyfriend's apartment, and she moves into the other member's apartment, right? All right. But how it look? You're the head of the synagogue, you're making people who are unmarried and they have 3 young, impressionable people, children, seeing these 2 adult people they're living in this sort of life. This is not an example. No. Remember, you're the head of the church, people are synagogue, or you're the head of that religion, right? So you are supposed to lead by example. So they come to the office now, and the rabbi said, "Oh, now forget married. This is not good in the eyes of God. You can't just be living. Because by this time now, divorce complete. After a while, she's single. So this time they come and say, no, you don't have to marry. Now, I'll tell you this. There's an application to set aside the marriage later on. Because by this time, the husband is doing very well. And if he's married, he has to divide up his assets. And him no want to give nothing because this girl, according to him, are crosses. Him want to come out of this. And I'm telling you, make sure you're entering into these marriages, you follow the proper steps. So the rabbi in the office now say, "Una for marry." Them not apply for a license. Absolutely not. Nothing has been applied for. But he is now putting them, because if anything, people can't hold them out. How you get the apartment? Oh, well, it's the rabbi asked this person to give us the apartment. And yeah, so it looks bad on the rabbi. He's supposed to cause you to uphold the tenets of your faith. Some say, no, you have to get married. All right, so they agree. Right there in the office, they agree. No marriage license, don't apply for. So years come by now and it gets sour. And the husband financially is doing well. She can't reach fame level in monies. But one of the dangers that will come out, and you have to be careful, because when you're in court, remember, the judge is enforcing the law, and he too is an officer of the court. So when you expose all your illegal activities, he will refer it. If you committed a crime, he's going to refer it to the DA for prosecution. And there's nothing like in a divorce proceedings, all your secret come out. So the wife now realizes, all right, he wants to set aside this divorce. He wants to deprive me of maintenance. He wants me, I've been a supportive wife. He wants to, because when your marriage not good, you're just a girlfriend. A girlfriend don't have no economic rights. And that's why, ladies, you are in this house washing, cooking, cleaning, and quinting, and you are not benefiting from this. So she realized, wait, no, everything will come out now. So the husband was an attorney. So now she revealed how he was taking the monies from her trust payments and putting it into his attorney escrow account, which he should not be doing. All right, so right away, him going to get referred, to the committee. Because she gonna make sure if this don't work out, she gonna name him license. Yeah? Because as an attorney, you're not supposed to do that. That's a client's account. Only client business must be performed in that account. Right? So she gonna name him there. Then him now reveal, and this is very careful. I want you to be very careful when you involve yourself with certain people and they are conducting their life in a certain way. So he now decides he's going to reveal that she applied for welfare, and on her paperwork, she claimed she was single. She collected food stamps. I think she collected possibly rental assistance. So now the judge makes a referral. Yeah, because now you committed welfare fraud. These are the things that come out in people's divorce proceedings. This is not a game. Because one of the hardest things is all you're looking for is a divorce. But now you end up being prosecuted for a crime. On their tax returns, the husband used to file he was single, and the wife filed head of household because she wants that benefit you get from having 3 children. You get a bigger refund. So now you're getting reported to the IRS. Remember, you just come to a court for a simple divorce. But it's not that simple, because your testimony is going to now cause you to end up in hot water, right? So here it is. The judge now has to decide. They never applied for a marriage license. So we're not just going to look at that in a vacuum to see whether or not we have a valid marriage here. Because that's not the end all. Let's see how you are living. So, of course, the poor rabbi, Lord Jesus, this man must say regret the day I meet them two people here, because now he gets called in. And his thing was, they came and he encouraged them to get married because he's now sending them into a home to live together as husband and wife, and they have 3 impressionable children, right? So according to the rabbi, because him have to protect himself now, Man smart. Him said this is the only ceremony that he did without a marriage license. Yeah, come now and them come back, come looking at him affairs. I completely agree with the man. So whether or not this was not the only ceremony, nobody don't have proof. He said he encouraged them to go and get a marriage license after. So the judge said, let me take a look at how you are living to see whether or not this was really a marriage. The judge looked at the fact that on their tax returns, one claiming single, then first of all, they never had a marriage license. 2, the husband is saying that it's because of the circumstances of their living arrangements they entered in the marriage. Man said never give her no ring. Yeah. The wife was saying she get a bracelet. The rabbi was saying that she got a ring. 3 different stories. And I think at one point, the judge was so disgusted in the 3 versions, but the only believable person out of the 2, him put him faith in the rabbi, right? The lady acted so inconsistent. First of all, the husband, he was smart. He said, when we go out, don't let anybody know that we are married. We're single. Yeah? So they held themselves out to the world as single people. Just like he asked her, why would you do this? Oh, because I trust my husband. But this is a story of a lot of wives. You trust your husband. Be very careful of that trust. And as a result of the way they were living, the circumstances of their marriage, they never applied for a marriage license. Yeah? How the whole ceremony went about. The judge said, this is not a valid marriage. No. I don't know if they're going to sue the rabbi, who knows? But the circumstances that have caused these people not to have a valid marriage, it's sad. It is truly sad. And it is hard where people have invested years in a marriage for a marriage not to be determined valid. And I am going to encourage anyone who is getting married in whatever state that you're looking to get married, research how to get married. Go and look at the clerk's website as to what it is that you need to constitute a valid marriage. Because it's going to be very hard for you. Being with somebody for years, investing in that marriage, only for a court to hold that your marriage is not valid. So the fact that you never applied for a marriage license is not the end all. Because if you go ahead, this is different from, you had an Indian couple who, they never applied for the license, but they went through the entire ceremony, right? The Hindu ceremony. They had 275 people as guests. I know where they know so much people from. 275 people as guests, and they went through the whole Hindu ritual in getting married. right? They had the witnesses, they had the person who officiated the wedding, right? They held themselves out to be husband and wife, and they displayed themselves to the world, and they acted in accordance with that, acted as a married couple. Judge said, no, you are married. Fact that you never applied for a license, we don't care. Yeah, so that marriage was held to be valid. But with the story of the rabbi and his people, because her husband was slick. And I think you have to watch red flags if you're in a marriage and your spouse is saying, don't let people know that we are married. That is one of the biggest red flags. And you have to tread cautiously, because for you to lose your economic rights for nonsense is devastating. No maintenance, which often people refer to as alimony, and you lose out in the division of property. It makes absolutely no sense to spend years with a person to lose out. You're not getting a dollar, right? Two things. If you're getting married, ensure that the person is free to marry. One of the red flags, if they say that they have been married 2, 3, 4 times, I'm going to encourage you, make sure you see that divorce judgment for all those divorces. Yeah? Another thing you have to encourage people to do, and you don't want to look like you are just out for the money, because that's a turn off too. When you're investing in someone and they have their ex-wife name, who she's not in that house taking care of them, and they have that name on the insurance policy, they don't even speak. The breakup was so hostile, but I'll guarantee you this, she's coming for that money. If her name is on that insurance policy, you have to be vigilant in your marriage. I find people, they become very lax. They're not very vigilant, and you lose out. And you lose out big time economically. Yeah? If you can't benefit, then what's the use? You might as well stay boyfriend and girlfriend. Yeah? But him can't live with you. Sorry. You can't reap all the benefits like that. Look out for prior divorces and make sure there is a document that can in fact substantiate that the person is divorced. Yeah? When you're getting married, follow the rules to ensure that you are keeping by the procedure. All right, so that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Oh my goodness, I did not even do my good morning greetings. Oh dear, hold on a second. Let me find my greeting, please. Okay, so we have here Pauline, Michelle, Suzette, June. I think this is Angela and Melanie. Good morning. I forgot to say my good mornings. Have a blessed week and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.